CMAP video up. Thank you. I will call this meeting of the San Benito County Planning Commission to order. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Ringhayden, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Absolutely. Vincent Ringhayden.
Present.
Richard Way.
Present.
Robert Scaliotti.
Present.
Robert Gibson.
Present.
Catherine Sanchez.
Present.
All commissioners are present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Departmental announcements.
Thank you, Chairway. There's no department announcements at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, this is general public comment, not about the item that is on the agenda for tonight. So if there's any public comment on items that are within the purview of the Planning Commission, but not on tonight's agenda, this would be your opportunity to make those comments. Do we have any general public comment?
I do not have any general public comment, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of acknowledging the certificate of posting for tonight's meeting, as well as approving the minutes of the last meeting that we had towards the end of May. I believe it was May 20th. Yeah, it was. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none. Both of these items will be considered together. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. And moving on into the actual business of tonight, item 7.1, review and provide recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. On proposed text amendments to Title 25. I won't read all of this, but basically it has to do with the battery electric storage systems, and I'll let Abraham explain further.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Good evening. Abraham Prado, Director of Planning and Building Services, County of San Benito. As you mentioned, before you today is the draft battery energy storage system ordinance for your review. As background, the San Benito County Board of Supervisors on March 10th, 2026, adopted a 45-day moratorium on BESS applications. And then further on April 28th, 2026, they extended that 45 days to another 45 days on BESS applications. And then just last week on Tuesday, June 9th, the Board of Supervisors extended the moratorium to an additional 10.5 months pursuant to government code. So pending the Commission's recommendation, the ordinance would be presented to the Board of Supervisors for consideration. And pending approval of the Board of Supervisors, the Board of Supervisors can then decide whether to adopt. And if it is adopted, then they can also rescind the moratorium once the ordinance takes effect. So the ordinance as proposed is written in its entirety in the presentation that I'm about to provide you here up on the screen. So everything that you have in your packet that you received, that we sent out last Wednesday, that was published on Thursday, it's gonna be presented here. However, I'm not gonna read word by word. I'm just gonna try to summarize each section if it's okay with the Commission. You have all that information. It's been available to the public since last Thursday as well.
Abraham, is it okay if we ask questions along the way?
Absolutely, Chairway. It's your prerogative. Absolutely. If you would like to stop me at any time in any of the slides, I'll be happy to stop and discuss any of the sections. Or if you like, I'll just continue going. And then at the end, if you'd like to ask any questions on any particular section, we can go to that section as well. As you may be aware, we're not experts on BESS, and so we do have, like, for example, Chief Charlie Bedoya was not able to be here in person, but I believe he's going to be in Zoom. He indicated that today. I know he's been very busy. There was a fire the day before yesterday, and I know that there's been some additional things that he's been working on, along with code enforcement and sheriff's deputies. So but I believe he's online in case there's a lot of things here pertaining to the fire department. We worked in collaboration with the fire department, along with other departments. So with that being said, if it's okay with the chair and the members of the planning commission, we can get started. What I would like to get started with at first is to indicate that the BES ordinance is essentially in two sections of the code. One is an existing section 25.03, and that's on zoning map and zoning districts. And then the other is the new section that's going to essentially discuss all the regulations, and that's 25.08032, and the title of that is Battery Energy Storage Systems. So with that, section 2503 is zoning map and zoning districts. Essentially, it covers all the different zoning districts throughout the county of San Benito, including agricultural, residential, commercial, industrial, and public, quasi-public. And with that, I will indicate where we came about to establish where BES is permitted and where is it not permitted, and where it's permitted with a conditional use permit. We'll talk about the purpose of the ordinance. We'll talk about definitions, applicability. Section D, we'll talk about land use standards. Section E, we'll talk about battery chemistry technology. Section F, we'll talk about impact mitigation measures. G, we'll talk about safety standards and certification. As you can expect, this is going to be one of the longest sections of the ordinance. I will try my best to summarize it, but it's all there. And finally, H, decommissioning, and I, permitting. So with that, if it's okay with the chair and members of the commission, we'll start with chapter 25.03, zoning. And we'll start with table 25.03B, agricultural zones, in section 25.03004. As stated in the ordinance, a conditional use permit would be required in the agricultural rangeland, agricultural productive, and rural zoning designations, subject to section 25.08.032, which indicates that provided that the proposed BES facility sites, including all areas disturbed by construction, access roads, interconnection facilities, staging areas, and related improvements, does not contain prime farmland, farmland of statewide importance, or farmland of local importance as shown on the most recent important farmland map prepared by the California Department of Conservation Farmland Mapping and Monitoring Program. And we do have those maps available at the end of my presentation. If you'd like, we can address those maps at that time. The next section, table 2503D, covers residential zones. In section 25.03005, as stated in the ordinance, BES is not allowed in the rural residential, single-family residential, or residential multiple zoning designation. So it's essentially not permitted within the residential zoning districts. Next table addresses commercial zones. In table 25.03F and section 25.03006, and as stated in the ordinance, BES is not going to be allowed in the C1 commercial thoroughfare or C2 neighborhood commercial. Next section is table 25.03H, industrial zones, in section 25.03007. And as stated in the ordinance, BES would be allowed or with a conditional use permit in the M1 light industrial zoning district and the M2 heavy industrial zoning district, subject to the same section that I quoted earlier, 25.08032D1, that none of the properties are within either prime farmland, farmland of statewide significance, or farmland of local significance as indicated in the FMMP map per the Department of Conservation, State of California. This next section, public quasi-public zones, table 2503J. In section 2503.008, as stated in the draft ordinance, the draft ordinance indicates that BES would require a conditional use permit in the RRP and public quasi-public sections of the zoning district, subject to the same section that I quoted earlier, 25.08032D1.
Abraham?
Yes.
Going back to table 25.03-H just for a moment, the the note on there, the 2508-032D1 agricultural district exception talks about permitting within agricultural rangeland, agricultural productive and rural, and yet this table is about industrial. So was the intent to have a footnote that would instead mention industrial and say that if there was farmland within the industrial zone, was that just a typo, or should this note not apply to this particular
Thank you.
section? I'm just confused.
No, thank you for that. So yes, so in addition with AR, AP, and R, we then will consult with county council, but I think we will have to include M1 and M2 as well to be consistent, because there is land within the M1, M2 that could be potentially prime or of statewide or local importance.
There is, okay, thank you. That's what I wasn't clear on. Okay.
Thank you for that. So after the PQP table, that will be taking us to section 8. Now, so that was 25.03. Now we're going to 25.08032 regarding the regulations. And as pretty much most ordinances, we start with the purpose. And the purpose of the ordinance is to protect the health, safety, welfare, and quality of life for the general public, to ensure compatible land uses in the areas affected by energy storage facilities, and to mitigate the impacts of energy storage facilities on the environment. Section B, definitions. We have various definitions that are not included in our current San Benito County Code, and that includes BESS, definition for BESS, a definition for behind-the-meter battery energy storage system, a definition for census-designated place, CDP, definition for commissioning, and for decommissioning. Regarding the CDP definition, if I can bring your attention to that definition, it indicates a geographic area identified and delineated by the United States Census Bureau for statistical purposes that represents a concentrated population center and is not an incorporated municipality. The reason why I want to bring this to your attention is because for section 25.08.032D3F, which we will cover in just a little bit, that section essentially addresses that a BESS facility should be at least a half a mile away from any population center that's pertaining to a municipality. As we know, we have the city of Hollister and the city of San Juan Bautista, and also indicates that it should be a half mile away from a sphere of influence and a CDP, a census-designated place. And the census-designated places that we have identified here in the county, correct me if I'm wrong, staff or county council, is Aromas and Tres Pinos. So that would apply to that. Richmond, sorry, as well. Thank you. And so just a little bit of context on that, at the June 9th Board of Supervisors meeting, that was one of the comments that was discussed, that the direction from the board was to have staff establish a separation from population centers. Just a little bit of background on that. Definitions also include the FMMP, as mentioned earlier, the front-of-the-meter battery energy storage systems, and the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Definitions also include land evaluation and site assessment, National Fire Protection Association, the NFPA, and the NFPA 855. As you've noticed, the NFPA is all through the ordinance. There's also definitions on sensitive receptors, thermal runaway, underwriters laboratories, the UL 9540. And that is it for definitions. Now we're going to go to section C, applicability. Applicability indicates that the requirement for BESS shall apply to essentially all of the areas in the unincorporated areas of the county of San Benito. So everything outside of the city of Hollister and San Juan Bautista. Also, the requirements of section 25.0832 shall not apply to behind-the-meter BESS installed on the customer side of the utility meter, accessory to an established principal use on the same site. And notwithstanding this exemption, all such systems shall remain subject to applicable building, fire, and electrical and safety codes for the County of San Benito, state, and federal. Section D, land use standards, and this is going out to land use standards. Number one, zoning districts. BESS facilities may be permitted only in zoning districts that expressly allow BESS under Chapter 25.03. Those were all the tables that I just presented a little while ago. And subsection A, agricultural district exception, that's the exception that I also read, that for those sections that are permitted with the conditional use permit, they still have to be outside of the prime farmland, farmland of local importance and farmland of statewide importance in order for them to be considered with the conditional use permit. Section D, land use continued. Subsection 2, natural disaster zone exclusion. BESS facilities are not permitted in very high fire hazard severity zones, and they are also not permitted on high fire hazard severity zones as determined by CAL FIRE within a state responsibility area or a local responsibility area. The maps are also included as part of this PowerPoint. If you want to go into that after, we can certainly do so. And then regarding FEMA, BESS facilities are not permitted within a FEMA designated floodplain unless the parcel or developed area where the BESS is to be installed is raised to at least 2 feet above the base flood elevation through a conditional letter of map revision, also known as a CLOMAR, and that's approved through FEMA, essentially. Continuing with land use standards, section 3, setbacks. The minimum distance of a BESS module from any existing sensitive receptor is 300 feet. Section B, a 30-foot wide fire-rated access road is required, and the fire department can speak more to this if necessary. Section C, setbacks from the front, side, and rear of the property lines to the BESS module are a minimum of 100 feet. Section D, BESS facilities shall maintain a minimum setback of 100 feet from any public road. Section E, a minimum setback of 500 feet from any existing residence. And Section F, BESS facilities shall maintain a minimum setback of a ½ mile, as indicated earlier, from the boundary of any incorporated city, City of Hollister, City of San Juan Bautista, sphere of influence, or designated, census-designated place, as indicated earlier. At the very bottom of this section F, it indicates the setback may be reduced or waived upon written concurrence from the affected city that the proposed facility is compatible with planned future land uses and development within the city or sphere of influence. To my knowledge, the City of Hollister or City of San Juan Bautista does not have a BESS ordinance, but say, for example, that somebody is interested in putting a BESS facility right outside the city limits, and it could be like right outside of the city's industrial area. They have the ability, the prospective applicant has the ability to reach out to the city and speak to the planning department or city manager to indicate or to request a concurrence letter, and then they can determine whether to write a concurrence letter, or they can even elevate it to the city council and have the city council write that concurrence letter or indicate that they do not concur with that site. And so if we receive that concurrence letter, then we can potentially then consider whether or not to waive that ½ mile setback, but if we don't, the ½ mile setback stands. Section 2508.032, still on land use standards, security and screening is required. Section B, security system, including cameras that are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week are required, and NFPA compliance is required. And NFPA compliance just talks about how the modules, like the BESS module, should be setbacks from one module to the other, setback from one module to any structures, like if bollards need to be included to avoid impact, things of that nature. So all of that has to be addressed. Screening requirements. Applicants shall use native landscaping, earthen berms, existing vegetation. As you can see here, we removed opaque fencing because BESS, best practices, require transparent, non-scalable fencing as indicated in the previous slide in section 4A, instead of opaque fencing. Section E, landscape standards, consists primarily of drought-tolerant and native plants with an irrigation requirement, and lighting standards, regarding lighting standards, exterior lighting shall be shielded and not create glare, spillover, or other adverse impacts on adjacent properties or public roadways. Scenic resource protection is required, and signage shall be located on BES modules and perimeter fences, and shall contain 24-hour emergency contact information and hazard warnings, complying with all current NFPA 704 standards. Sound levels: the average noise generated from a BES facility shall not exceed 65 decibels. Hours of construction shall be consistent with the hours of construction within the San Benito County Code, which essentially are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and no construction allowed on Sundays or federal holidays. A site plan is required, and it shall include property lines, setbacks, location of BES modules, any structures, everything that was just mentioned earlier on setbacks, and the conditional use permit application actually has a detailed information on what's required on the site plan and all the other different plans that we required. And the ordinance also requires a road maintenance agreement with the Public Works Department. That takes us to Section E, battery chemistry technology. And this section addresses that BES facilities shall utilize commercially available battery technologies that minimize the risk of thermal runaway. And that BES facility owners must reimburse San Benito County and emergency response agencies, including fire agencies, for all costs associated with if there's an unfortunate situation where a thermal runaway event is caused. This takes us to impact mitigation measures, Section F. This section addresses that a BES applicant may be subject to mitigation measures, conditions of approval, fees, contributions, reimbursements, monitoring requirements, or other project-specific obligations, such as number 1, as indicated on the screen, a contribution towards site-specific training for emergency response agencies. Number 2, a contribution towards radio emergency communication improvements. Number 3, a contribution towards emergency dispatch communications to address emergency response deficiencies. Next page. A contribution towards fire response equipment, and the amount and form of such compensation by the applicant can be established through a development agreement, fire service agreement, reimbursement agreement, conditions of approval, or other mechanisms as approved by the County of San Benito, as indicated in Section C of the ordinance here, here on the screen at the very bottom. This now takes us to G, safety standards and certifications. Again, this is the longest section of the code. The board did direct staff to essentially make this one of the priorities, safety, but I will try my best to summarize this as best as possible. Safety is a major focus of this ordinance. The applicant is required to work with the county's emergency response agencies to prepare an emergency response plan prior to issuance of any building permit. This next section requires that at the time of application submittal, technical analysis would be required that evaluates thermal runaway risks or other specific safety impacts as noted. A financial assurance plan in the event of an unfortunate thermal runaway event and other hazardous incidents would also be required in addition to fire suppression and water supply information submittal. Subsections 11 and 12 up here in the screen and in your ordinance requires at a minimum, unless an alternative water supply is approved, the BES project shall maintain an on-site pressurized water system equipped with a fire department connection. The system shall include a minimum of 50,000 gallons of dedicated water storage unless the fire agency having jurisdiction determines based on the approved hazard mitigation analysis or other substantial evidence that a lesser amount or alternative water supply will provide equivalent or greater fire protection. This section also addresses that the applicant shall prepare and implement a weed and vegetation management plan approved by the fire agency having jurisdiction over the project. Safety standards continued. A fire alarm system, fire detection, and gas detection system would be required. A maintenance plan requiring routine maintenance must be submitted to the emergency response agency. Also, documentation of a dedicated fire water supply is required. In the event that municipal water is available for the proposed site, a requirement for the dedicated fire water supply may be waived by the fire agency having jurisdiction over the project. And as you can see here on Roman numeral number 16, we removed the language regarding the director of the Department of RMA waiving this because this is specifically related to fire water supply. Safety standards continued. This section addresses that the approving authority may require baseline air quality testing, air monitoring, or other environmental monitoring measures where there is substantial evidence demonstrating that such monitoring is reasonably necessary to address potential hazardous emissions associated with the proposed facility. BES operator would be required to submit a comprehensive annual report to the county consisting of the number of threats made to the site, the number of trips or number of times the site security system was activated, the number of hazardous incidents at the site, the number of fire and law responses to the site, air monitor results, and any additional information necessary. Safety standards continue. This section requires, that's B, this section requires applicant to submit technical studies prepared by a third party fire protection engineer approved by the county with all costs borne by the applicant. These technical studies include mechanisms for maintaining the temperature and humidity ratings of a BES module, plume modeling, which is a method which analyzes how gases, smoke, vapors, particulates, or other airborne contaminants will disperse in the atmosphere after being released from a source, and also impacts on aviation operations, specifically addressing impacts on flight paths of the Hollister Municipal Airport and other airports within the county, as indicated in section 4 of the B4 of the ordinance. Safety standards continue. This is the last section of the safety standards before we go into decommissioning. Technical studies would be required analyzing the chemical composition of BES, fire emissions, and associated human, wildlife, and environmental hazards, specifically at which distances emissions impacts will be hazardous. Also, technical studies must analyze water runoff and fire suppression, associated impacts to groundwater, wildlife, waterways, and the environment. BES facilities must have active and passive fire and explosion detection systems in place, including gas detectors. These systems must be able to detect explosive gases, trigger alarms, and initiate ventilation systems to mitigate risks from thermal runaway. This brings us to an end of the safety standards, and now on to decommissioning. Decommissioning and permitting are very well detailed within the draft ordinance, but I would just try to summarize these as follows. A decommissioning plan is required that provides for the return of all such properties to a useful condition. Land that was used for agricultural production prior to BES construction must be restored to a condition conducive for agricultural production. The decommissioning plan should include, but not be limited to, financial assurance. The amount of the financial assurance shall not be less than the estimated cost of decommissioning the facility as calculated by a third party with expertise and decommissioning, which the county has the discretion to select but be paid for by the applicant. The entire financial assurance must be posted by the start of full commercial operations of the BES facility. With that, that covers the decommissioning aspect of that. And we can skip over to permitting, which is the last section. And essentially, this indicates that a pre-application meeting would be required prior to submittal of a formal application to allow county review of the proposed project, and also public agencies and third-party subject matter experts review, and this would be paid for by the applicant. Once comments are provided by staff to the applicant can determine whether to submit an application for a conditional use permit. And payment by the applicant would cover the county's ability to retain the services of a third-party expert to review and process the conditional use permit application. If a conditional use permit is approved, the applicant would then need to submit for building permits or all requirements under the California Uniform Building Code, Fire Code, National Fire Protection Association, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and Underwriters Laboratories, UL, amongst other standards would apply. And this essentially covers the next few slides of permitting. And finally, the last slide is section I-6, and that is the language drafted by County Council to establish the project's point of sale for taxable transactions within unincorporated San Benito County. With this, thank you for your time. Thank you for looking over the ordinance, and I'll be happy to address any questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there questions from the commission for Abraham before we go to public comment? Yes, please.
Yes, through the chair. I notice on there, it says on an annual basis during the construction period and the first 5 years of operation, the applicant shall provide to the planning department a brief summary of the location of the project, sales tax, et cetera. The only issue I have with that is generally things don't come through the planning department to the planning commission and we're left like little mushrooms. I would like to see with the presentation to the planning commission or something to that effect in that language, because it's kind of nice to know what happens after things go through us
You're welcome.
without having to read it in Benito link or the freelance or whatever else is online. That's all I have for now.
Other questions for Abraham? Yes.
Going back to the standards for water on the 50,000 gallons of water only, we just had a fire north of us that had 1 million square feet burned to the ground because they didn't have any water. That's ridiculous number. We need to bump that up to about 325,000 gallons, at least an acre foot, minimum. And these batteries, you can't put them out with just water. What other chemicals do they use to suffocate them out?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Scaglioti. We do have Fire Chief Bedoya on the 50,000 gallon water. That was in collaboration with his department and him. And if you'd like for him to address that, he's happy to do so. And in regards to putting out the, if in the unfortunate situation of a fire on BESS modules, in some of the research that staff was doing, and looking at the fires that occurred like in Moss Landing and also in San Diego, the OTA Mesa battery energy storage systems fire, and doing research and listening to some of the experts in the fire department addressing that. One of their solutions indicated essentially to that it's really hard to smother these BESS modules that catch on fire, and essentially one of the ways to unfortunately let it be put off is just to let it burn, is what we were seeing, which is very unfortunate. Charlie should be, Chief Bedoya should be on the line if you would like for him to address that further, or if you want to wait.
I have one more other question. And why wasn't airports considered because of the glare off all the panels? Like, why weren't airports, we have 2 airports in North County, and they both would have significant problems with the glare for takeoff and landings.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Scaglioti.
Why wasn't that taken into consideration?
Thank you for that. So one of the sections does require that the technical studies do address impacts to runways. The process that we have in place right now is we do have a land use compatibility plan adopted by the San Benito County Council of Governments, and it does have a safety standard with Zone 1 being right around the runway, and that's the most restrictive area for land use. And then Zone 2, it gets a little bit further, Zone 3 a little bit further, goes all the way to Zone 6. And if there's any proposed developments, whether it's BES developments or any type of projects that require a discretionary permit that would come before the Planning Commission or Board of Supervisors, there's a requirement that the application gets sent to the Airport Land Use Commission, to the staff of the San Benito County Council of Governments, and they would have to make what's called a determination, a consistency determination as to whether the proposed use would be consistent within that particular zone. And so if it is consistent, then they satisfy that requirement. If it's not, then they don't. And my understanding is that with the BEST facilities, the actual module itself for battery energy storage systems doesn't necessarily have the solar, but a lot of it comes together, like the application that we currently have north of the airport, where we do have various acres that are solar, and then we have a smaller section that is for battery energy solar systems. And my understanding is that now the technology on these solar panels are more of an opaque technology that minimizes, reduces, or even eliminates glare.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions
Chair,
before
I
we
had a
go to
question.
public comment? Yes, please.
Abraham, if you could help me, where in the regulations is the communication with stakeholders, with the public? How is that woven in?
Regarding an application, Commissioner Sanchez, for a BES application. So those are standards that we have in our San Benito County Code, and that's under our when we process an application, we have requirements for an environmental review of the application, and so when we do the environmental review process, as part of the environmental review, we would then send out notification to the newspaper and a notification to applicants within a certain distance of the project site. But even before that, when we actually start the environmental, if it's an environmental impact report, one of the first steps is to have a notice of it's a notice of a proposed project. And so that is essentially like a public hearing where we will essentially send notification out to members of the public, send newspaper notification, and we'll essentially be covering all the sections that the environmental document would cover. And we would then, not only the members of the public, but we would also invite all the different agencies, locally, statewide, federal agencies that may have concerns, and that we invite them to comment. We give a certain amount of days, I believe it's 45 days, for them to provide written comments or for them to come and attend that meeting and provide us with their comments for us to be able to address those potential concerns. So that's the very first part of it. Then once the draft is complete, when it gets sent out, for 45 days, and the members of the public are able to review and or provide comments within that 45-day period as well. And then as staff would have to respond to those comments in what's called the final environmental impact report. So that's, all of that is within the existing San Benito County, not necessarily within this section 2508.032.
And you're letting me know that these BEST projects are always going to be subject to the CEQA? And if they aren't, will there be a stakeholder involvement otherwise?
Good question. Thank you for that. Pretty much all projects are subject to CEQA, and the response from the county is whether the project can be categorically exempt and essentially not be subject to that public processing, or would require mitigative negative declaration, essentially after the review of it, if it's determined that there could be impacts, but the impacts could potentially be mitigated to a less than significant effect. And then there's the environmental impact reports, which pretty much indicate that the impacts that this project can produce are likely not going to be able to be mitigated, no matter how much we try. And so, depending on which of those categories it lies, that CEQA process would be required. If your concern is to establish more of a public review or public stakeholder aspect, in particular to this section and BESS, that's why we're here today as well, and that can be considered and implemented if it is a will of the Planning Commission.
And Abraham, if I may, commissioners, so the code also provides, so separate from the environmental review, just part of the conditional use permit, which is required for this, one of the subsections requires a public notice and hearing for all applications for conditional use permits before the Planning Commission, and that's a public hearing pursuant to the code.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. Thank you.
I had a couple of comments. I was first curious, is San Benito County a WUA zone, a fire hazard zone, the entire county?
Thank you for that, Commissioner Van Hayden. There is a lot of sections within the San Benito County, the unincorporated areas of the county, that are within the wildland-urban interface, the WUI zone that you referred to. That is correct. Yes.
So one of the things in here says that it can't be built in a fire zone, I believe, and I thought almost the entire county is a fire zone, so there's less places for them to actually build. The other thing I wanted to point out, back onto the 50,000 gallons of standby, is that standby water, like in a tank?
Correct. It would be, yes, it would be, and if Chief Bedoya is online, he can address it a little bit more. Actually, I have it up here. It says dedicated water. It would be equipped with fire department connection. The system shall include a 50,000 gallons of dedicated water storage. The system shall be directly connected to a well or other reliable water supply capable of replenishing the water storage tanks.
Okay. I guess my next question then would be, how did they put out the Moss Landing fire? Was it water?
And that's a really good question, Commissioner Van Hayden. My understanding is, I mean, as I was doing some research on these, it's really hard to put them off with water. It's really hard to smother them. Essentially, as indicated by some of these experts, they
It doesn't work.
let them burn. Yeah, I mean, I think it helps, but yeah, it's.
But even in, a deluge system, it really wouldn't be sufficient. So I think we should learn some lessons from Moss Landing and kind of get to a best practices of what not to do.
Good point.
Is what they did. And then, I have more questions, but I guess I'll wait for it. But that was kind of a big concern. If they're saying 50,000 gallons, and I don't think that's enough, then my second question would be, is that the way you put out a battery fire and it's not? So I'd like maybe if there was some other systems considered, foam systems or other systems considered, that may be better than 50,000 gallons of water that's not going to put out a fire. But I think those are my questions for now.
Did you want to have the fire chief who's on the line through Zoom address?
Charlie, I know he's on the line, but I don't know, maybe he can say something about what
He has his hands raised, and yeah,
what happened at Moss Landing, how was it put out, and would water be a good practice, or is there something else?
very well.
If Charlie could speak on that.
Charlie, you've been allowed to unmute yourself.
Good evening, this is Charlie, Fire Marshal. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Perfect, thank you. So good questions. So let's talk about the 50,000 gallons. When I addressed it about the 50,000 gallons, there was some concern that they didn't want to do it because we're not going to use water to be extinguishing the fires, which is kind of true. They're water reactive, these BESS systems. So we're not going to be able, we have to basically let them burn. The good thing is these are all exterior now, and they're in like packs of 2 on each one of these containers. So they'll usually be contained to one container, and the best thing to do is just let it hurry up and burn out. Because if you're putting it out, it's still making an explosive atmosphere where it's going to blow up and catch up again on fire till all that stuff's burned out. So what I told them was like 50,000 gallons. I go, that's to protect the exposures. That's to protect the grass. That's to protect it from going downwind when it sparks and it gets out there. That's for us to be able to knock those fires down in between and to keep it contained to where we're at. I go, that's why we're having all the water. The water we understand is not going to put it out. Otherwise, we're going to have to use copious amounts, and they're going to have to store hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of gallons. So with Moss Landing, that's the bad thing. It was all interior, and it's not even allowed interior anymore. So that was an old facility that was allowed to do it. It's not happening anymore, if that makes sense. So we'll have 50,000 gallons charged hydrant. So we'll get unlimited, whatever we need. And for solar facilities, since we already have at our solar facility array, we're telling them 15, I believe it was 15,000 gallons or 50, whichever one. If it's only solar, 15,000 gallons, since we already set standard, or 50 for the BESS.
So is that the same question that Commissioner Scagliotti had, or you had a slightly different?
I have something to add to my original question through the chair, please. Charlie, you said we'll have maybe fires downwind or in the grasses or what have you. Do you have a minimum gallons per minute to go to that tank so you guys can keep up with the fire trucks? Did you put a minimum gallons per minute? 100, 1,000, 50? A fire truck will pump a lot of water real fast.
Yeah, 50 is sufficient. Like I said, we're not using it to pump. We're not using it to suppress a building.
No.
These are all little exterior containers. So we're only using it for the exposures for the grass is what we're using it for.
I understand that, but once up, you use your 50,000 gallons, when you have the charge system, the water coming to it, what's the minimum gallons per minute you want going to that storage tank to fill it back up so that?
Oh, absolutely. We'll get the refill rate up there.
What's that?
We'll get the refill rate up there. I mean, it'll have to have a faster refill rate, or if they don't, if it's not sufficient, then we'll bump it up,
Okay,
the storage.
thank you.
Okay. Other questions for staff before we, or for Charlie, before we open up for public comment? No? Okay. Then let's go ahead and open up public comment. Stephanie, can you read the rules for public comment, please?
Yep. If you would like to public comment in chambers, please fill out a public speaker card indicating the item with which you would like to speak and present that speaker card to the clerk. Through Zoom, please press *9 or the raise hand icon, and we will start with individuals in chambers. I will call your name. You can come up to the podium. You will have 3 minutes. So we are going to start with Lauren Cyphers.
Hello, good evening, commissioners and planning staff. I'm Lauren Cyphers. I work for Long Road Energy. We're developing the Allium Solar and Storage Project. I want to start by saying that we support the county having a strong, thoughtful battery storage ordinance. After reviewing this draft, we do think it needs some more time to get it right. So we've submitted detailed written comments on the ordinance, and then also the landowner leasing acres to us also submitted a comment pointing out that most of these acres, while considered prime and important on some of them, are just being grazed or fallowed, and only a small portion is farmed for crops. And even those are low productivity, challenging ground. So the ordinance shouldn't strip a landowner's freedom to temporarily put their own land to a higher economic use. I do hope the planning staff will consider those comments in full, but I just want to call out a few things right now. So first, parts of the ordinance layer on requirements that go far, far beyond what the already rigorous and up-to-date state and national safety codes lay out. And my concern here is that that adds real cost and complications for these types of projects without necessarily adding real safety. And costs like that ultimately flow through to the energy rates people pay across the state, which are already too high. Second, a few provisions would make these projects very, very hard to build at all, even on the kind of land where they actually make a lot of sense. So I think an ordinance can be strict on safety without effectively closing the door to development. And then third, a number of the key terms and requirements I think are still pretty open-ended or like too undefined right now, which leaves uncertainty both for the applicants trying to comply, but also for your own staff trying to apply it consistently. So I think some refinement in the name of clarity is needed, because a clear, workable, and realistic ordinance is what gives responsible developers the confidence to invest here in San Benito. And projects like Allium bring major, reliable, and multi-decade tax revenue to the county with no strain on housing, no long-term traffic impact, and no real demand on county services. I want to stress that the project is a long-term commitment for us. We develop, own, and operate our projects, and that's why we've been engaging with stakeholders and decision makers in this county since the start of 2021. And why we've been at the Hollister's Farmers Markets the last 2 years. We're there almost every week in the green long road tent next to the steak stop, and I recommend anyone come hang out with us and ask questions. So to summarize, I commend the planning staff for their work on this ordinance, but it isn't ready. So rather than move it forward as written, I'd ask the commissioners to send it back to the staff to keep working and present a refined draft at future hearings. Glad to be a resource or provide expertise or third-party resources. Just want to be a good partner. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, Leslie Austin.
Good evening, Chair Way, Vice Chair Ringenden, and Commissioners. My name is Leslie Austin. I live in Aromas, about 11 miles from Moss Landing, and I work in a nonprofit clean energy policy organization, and I support battery energy storage. I'm asking you to recommend a strong local best ordinance tonight with targeted revisions and clear direction to staff before the board takes final action. Staff deserves a lot of credit. The draft includes serious fire protection, cost recovery, emergency response, monitoring, and decommissioning standards. You heard them all tonight. San Benito County needs a local framework for this infrastructure for sure. But the ordinance is both strong, it needs to be both strong and workable. BEST does not have to be built on farmland, but a parcel with an electrical line is not automatically a feasibility utility scale BEST site. Projects still need real interconnection, available capacity, emergency access, environmental clearance, and economics that work. That is why mapping matters. If the combined siting layers, farmland exclusions, setbacks, floodplain limits, fire hazard exclusions, city and community buffers, and real-world grid access leave few or no feasible sites, then the ordinance becomes a de facto ban. And that is not thoughtful local control, and it invites applicants to bypass the county through the CEC opt-in process. So I'm asking for 5 revisions. The first is map how many parcels actually survive all of the siting layers. If there is no workable path, revise the standards. Second, use LISA and site-specific review to protect genuinely productive farmland and incorporate conservation plan habitat data as available. Third, require enforceable local benefit, not aspirational knowledge, which is in the plan at the moment. Fourth, require structured community engagement before projects move forward. Fifth, recognize the safety system is not safe without a trained and certified workforce. C10 state certified electricians, state certified electricians, and ESAM tag certified electricians. And confirm Senate Bill 283 compliance. Please recommend that the board adopt a local best ordinance with these changes, preserve local control, and make this ordinance strong, workable, and worthy of the public's trust. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Ron Cheshire.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, and staff. Ron Cheshire, IBW Local 234. I'm their Marketing and Research and Governmental Affairs Director. Staff has done a fantastic job on this first draft. But as with all new technology, it's always a work in progress. Cars were around 130 years ago, and we're still writing requirements for them. There's a lot to look into still, but we have three concerns, and I'll outline them. We're talking about best projects, but what you're really talking about is a commercial best project. State law has already gone ahead and divided the projects up between residential and commercial. Commercial projects, anything over that has a capacity of 80 kilowatt hours or greater. And then with that comes certain provisions, requirements. And one of those is that the contractor that's going to be doing the electrical work on the project needs to be a licensed C10 contractor. No more C46 solar panel installers, okay? C10 electrical contractor. The next thing is that with the C10 designation, and because it's a commercial project, state certified electricians need to be on that project. Now, these are laws that the state of California has in place, and they need to be in this ordinance. Lastly, and the city of Escondido has gone ahead and basically added these things into their ordinance. I want you to know that. You have that information, I think. Lastly is the ESMTAC. It's a program that's been around. It was developed there at the University of Pennsylvania with cooperation from electrical contractors and others in regards to these battery storage facilities, in regards to energy generating facilities and microgrids. And the city of Escondido went ahead and required that 15% of the workforce should be trained in this. And the benefit is number one, is that the contractor has workers who have been educated and trained in regards to working with these batteries and such, and the systems, putting the right connections together and building a good project right off the bat so there are no problems down the road, hopefully. Okay, those are the three things. Now, while I got a couple seconds left, I'm going to tell you something. Don't worry about the water too much, because I work for Dow Chemical. I made magnesium.
You can finish your thought.
And you don't put a metal fire out with water. You have to do it other way. Okay, it's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jessica Ayala.
Hello and good evening. My husband wrote a draft guidance best ordinance for Santa Cruz County last year, and it was forwarded to the gentlemen, the supervisors of your board, and it was supposed to be forwarded to you, legal, and the planning commissioner. It's my understanding that it never reached everyone. But I am happy to see that a lot of the language that is used in your current draft is a cut and paste from his guidance ordinance. This is a very good draft one. There is a lot of critical topics that are missing in here. At the moment, what we see the problem nationwide is that there's a cut and paste, I don't know what you want to call it, but they're inadequate and they're having problems nationwide. an expert should actually take a look at this and give guidance. My husband is an expert in this field of over 30 years, and he has welcomed the opportunity to work with your local government and educate and guide and navigate through these facilities. If anyone is interested in having a conversation with him, please let me know. And it would help you better understand the technology of today and the technology that is coming in, futuristic. But thank you for, all the work that you do. But this should be passed as a draft 1, and it should be revisited. And please take a look at the draft that he wrote. It is outdated because technology moves so fast. And those ordinances, depending on the size of the facility, should be close to 60, 80 pages. As you could see, this ordinance is not, even though it does have some critical, very good language in it, it's still missing a lot of really critical elements in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sophia Schwartzky?
Good evening, Chair Wei and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Sophia Schwartzky, and I am here on behalf of 3CE, the public agency that procures energy for 1.2 million Central Coast residents. 3CE is responsible for delivering power to the communities we serve, and energy storage is a critical tool. Storage helps balance supply and demand on the grid, improves reliability during times of peak demand, and helps keep costs affordable for customers by reducing reliance on fossil fuels. We are concerned that the proposed ordinance is so restrictive that it undermines the goal of local control. If developers determine that the county's permitting pathway is not viable, they can seek approval through the state's AB 205 process, where decisions are made by the California Energy Commission rather than local officials. In April, the commission approved 300 megawatts of battery storage in San Bernardino County, and this was the third project approved under this pathway, with several more large-scale battery storage projects expected to be considered this year. It's important to note that this project had previously been denied by the county. In order to retain authority over the siting and review of storage projects, the ordinance should provide a clear and achievable local permitting pathway. Standards that are significantly more restrictive than established state and national frameworks may have the unintended consequence of pushing projects into that AB 205 process. For example, the ordinance requires a half-mile setback from cities, spheres of influence, and census-designated places. By contrast, the national safety standards referenced throughout the ordinance use setbacks of approximately 100 feet, not 2,640 feet. Together with the ordinance's other siting restrictions, it is unclear how many parcels, if any, would remain eligible for battery storage development in San Benito County without invoking the state process. It is also unclear how the ordinance would interact with the county's existing solar regulations, which are more permissive. As solar and storage projects are increasingly developed together, we encourage the county to clarify how a project that includes both solar generation and battery storage would be reviewed, and whether the two uses would be subject to conflicting siting standards. We encourage the county to be guided by the safety standards established through Senator Laird's Senate Bill 283, the Clean Energy Safety Act. Those standards were developed in consultation with experts and provide a strong foundation for ensuring storage projects are reviewed and operated safely while preserving local decision-making authority. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And John Freeman?
There you go.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Freeman, and for almost 6 years, I was a policy board member of 3CE, and you just heard their representative speak and give an excellent presentation. And I'm going to follow up a little bit and basically agree with the public comment that Leslie gave and that Sophia gave, and just remind you that it's really important that we have these battery energy storage projects. They help do a lot. Approximately 400,000 people a year die premature deaths from power plant pollution from fossil fuels. This eliminates that, or helps eliminate that. That's really important. It also helps eliminate CO2 emissions into the air, which are the cause of global warming and a lot of our problems. And so I'm going to take just a few minutes to speak on battery chemistry. And I was a water treatment chemist for 20 years in Fresno, California, and worked in power plants. So I know a little bit about that, but not battery storage. But both the Otay Mesa and the Moss Landing power plant problems occurred with what's called nickel, manganese, cobalt battery systems. And they also occurred because they were in very large buildings, not the containerized buildings that this project is proposing. I would have Abraham here add one line among the others that Leslie spoke of that would basically mandate that you cannot use NMC batteries in this project. Their thermal runaway propensity is much greater than that of the LFP batteries. For example, LFP batteries start to burn at 207 degrees Celsius. The nickel manganese burn at 150. That's a huge difference, huge. So the LFPs are much less likely to ever catch fire and cause problems. So I think I've said enough. I'm fully supportive of battery storage systems in this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Elias Salinas.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. So I am in support of this project. And as it was stated before, the stricter you make this, you have the ability to use it or lose it. The more strict you make it, gives the ability to bypass approval by the county, and under AB 205, we'll be able to get the process done in less than a year. Right now, the Board of Supervisors have extended it for 10 months. So now we're way past over the year. So the more strict you make it, then you're going to lose the ability to be able to use any kind of trade-offs. So if you were to go back to the drawing board, this just has to go and add a little bit more language. But the language that needs to be added is language that goes along with the state. California, everybody complains, we have so many regulations. Well, what more can you ask for than to go to the state? And Senator Leard has basically already put the laws out there for you that you should be able to follow. So I would strongly encourage you to go back, look at the language, what can be taken out, what could be added, so that AB 205, which basically overrides the NIMBYs, because that's what you're going to be getting here. You're going to get the NIMBYs is saying, we don't want it, it's going to cause fire, it's going to do this, and it's going to cause all this pollution. You have to remember that Moss Landing was built years and years ago, and as John said already, the batteries that are made are completely different. And Charlie Bedoya said now that the batteries are placed in cases, not exactly, I'm just going to describe it as in cases, so that if something were to happen, the fire stays within that system. Because there is no retardant against these right now. There's many companies that are working on trying to find a retardant, and it's going to be a long process. So again, stay ahead of the NIMBYs. Write this so that San Benito County takes advantage of being able to have trade-offs. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and moving over to Zoom, Stacy McGrady, you've been allowed to unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, Chair and Board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. And I think there's been some really, really good comments made already. For example, I think it is kind of unfair to compare this to Moss Landing because the technology has changed so significantly and so quickly. It's already, the Moss Landing incident is outdated for comparison. I agree that we need resources for San Benito County. I am concerned about simply being a commodity for Silicon Valley, and I want to know clearly and specifically what benefits this will bring to San Benito County. Fiscal benefits, energy benefits, infrastructure benefits, economic development benefits for our county. Because like everybody knows, we're struggling, and it's not going to get better without some real clear support. Another, as I was looking at that, and I was looking at the landscaping, and I just can't, I don't know how this could be resolved, but I can't help but I drive past that Amazon plant almost every day, and it's just ugly. It's ugly to look at. There's no landscaping. There's no visual barriers, and so I hope that the landscaping, in addition to just being drought tolerant and weed abatement, can we do something so that we don't have these unsightly visual things in our county, in our community. Lastly, before this is ever, and I think it's premature to take this for a draft, this planning process for a draft for the battery storage in front of the Planning Commission. It's premature, and it's a lack of public transparency. I think that the Planning Commission should defer any review of this until after there's more public input and input from subject matter experts. One thing I know for sure is that you don't know what you don't know, and that's been brought up even tonight with the comments. And my very last request is that this include a fully funded, fully staffed, fully built out, and fully employed and equipped fire station in North County. And I'm not talking about like the one at the fire station. I mean a complete, fully developed fire station for emergency response. So thank you so much. I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, and next, Philip Karanko, you've been allowed to unmute yourself. Philip, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, this time?
Oh, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I'm sorry about that. Computer technical problems. Hi, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Philip Karanko. I am a 30-plus year regulatory compliance expert for such companies as Cisco Systems, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and Amazon. This ordinance is a really nice first draft. There is a lot of information provided, on the document and really want to compliment staff for putting this thing together and providing it today and giving us information. But as agreed upon from other people, this needs to be tabled so that we can add some additional critical information in there regarding such indications as zoning. Best batteries should not be looked at in the M1 or M2. They are not light industrial development or medium industrial development. These are heavy industrial type of equipment that need to be placed in those type of ordinance stipulations due to the fact of their energy consumption, because that's what they're primarily designed for, is to obtain energy and release energy. Also, regarding concerns of fire, if there hasn't been a nexus report performed yet from our fire department, that needs to be done so that they can ensure that the station is well equipped or needs to be equipped better for these types of systems. We do not want to impact the community if there is a fire. What we have to do is understand that, yes, technology has changed and fire is less likely to happen, but it will happen. That's one thing we have to understand. These things are fire gonna happen. That's predictable. So take into consideration with that, knowing that these systems are designed for high energy, and as the fire marshal stated, yes, we're just gonna sit back and watch them burn. That's just the way it is. But we need to make sure that proper safety is done in place, and that's what this ordinance needs to ensure, is that safety is key for the community, not for the developer. The developer should not have any concerns. They should be wanting to meet all the regulations put in place. We also need to make sure to find out if these devices are going to be stackable. That put them into a different type of testing structure inside of the NFPA 855 as well as the UL 9540A if they are stackable. So understanding the technology of the battery is very key and critical on how you are going to have a fire mitigation plan put in place. And according to Laird's bill, SB 283, remember that the fire marshal has the veto power to stop any of these applications. Even if it goes to a state level, they have the ability to stop these applications if the fire mitigation plan is not to their standing to ensure the safety and well-being of the community. So ensure that those type of verbiage is in place. Again, thank you very much, and I'm willing to help out any way I can.
Thank you.
Okay, and next, Mike Nicholas, you've been allowed to unmute yourself.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Michael Nicholas, and I am a retired captain and assistant fire marshal from Kern County Fire Department, where I spearheaded the best permitting process back in 2020. I've worked with Solano County, San Diego County, Monterey County, California Energy Commission, California Public Utilities Commission, and the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development in helping to put together their best toolkits and their ordinances. Wanted to take an opportunity to address the commission and the board. The questions about Moss Landing, I have some information on for suppression. Also have information on the water tank capacity that is listed in NFPA 855, and it references NFPA 1142, calling for a 30,000 gallon minimum tank on site. We do not actively suppress nor extinguish these fires. In fact, in the next edition, the 2026 edition of NFPA 855, we have pivoted away from the term suppression because of the misnomer that it creates. So this is an observe and contain approach. It helps to deal with stranded energy, any volatile toxins, reflash, water contamination, and ultimately a shorter duration incident. Regarding some of these setbacks, for context, the federal EPA and the International Association of Firefighters have put out guidance for a 330-foot setback for the incident command post. At that distance, we are staging equipment with personnel in no protective gear, no breathing apparatus. So when you're looking at the half-mile setback from spheres of influence and other areas, just wanting to level set where we place our first responders outside of any sort of protective equipment. We also want to consider the fact that California has green energy codes that require generating assets like solar on all new residential and commercial construction, as well as battery storage. So we will be seeing these enclosures, same Tesla megapacks and so forth, in Home Depot parking lots, right next to hospitals that OSHPOD are working on, in school campuses that the DSA, Department of State Architects, is permitting, So we need to realize that these are all around us. Every home fire that we go to with new construction is going to have a battery in it. So with that in mind, I want to take the opportunity to avail myself. I've worked with Abraham and talked with him quite a bit on their best development there with you guys. And if there's any questions, I want to leave a little bit of time if the commissioner has any questions.
Thanks. I don't think we do at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with the few seconds I have left, the plume analysis that talks about doing a plume analysis considering every module simultaneously going up as a statistical improbability. We've seen other jurisdictions ask for something similar. It's simply not something that is actively going to occur. And so these are progressive incidents that happen from a module to another module. We've seen fully involved enclosures that have not burned 20% of the modules in there. So just for context about that sort of requirement within your BESS ordinance. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Seth Capron, you've been allowed to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Way and fellow commissioners. I think you know me, I'm Seth Capron. I served on 3CE's Community Advisory Council for 6 years, 2 years as chair. So I'm familiar with some of the issues involved here. You all know that our economy and our lifestyle requires a great deal of energy, and with energy use and storage comes risk, no matter what kind of energy it is. So I think it's important to keep that in mind as we weigh the risks and benefits of these kind of projects. We need energy storage to complement solar. We can't keep building solar in the state or even wind power without the ability to store some of it for nighttime use. And to meet our state climate goals, that's just a must. And from my perspective, that's our biggest risk in this whole discussion is what happens if we don't meet our state climate goals. So I think that the message there is that we need to find a way to do this. I think it's great that we're working on an ordinance that will do this in as safe a way as possible. I think that I'd like, excuse me just for a sec here, projects built close to the users instead of far away over in the Central Valley mean that we don't have to build power lines, and those power lines have all kinds of environmental impacts and they're very difficult to site. As you look at this ordinance, I hope you look at it through the lens that recognizes the need for climate action. In doing your risk analysis, keep in mind that the biggest risk on the table here is that we don't meet our climate goals. Pass an ordinance with strong safety requirements that is practical and opens the door for this essential infrastructure to be built. An ordinance that essentially prohibits any BESS projects because of all of its requirements is essentially saying, not in our backyard. I have one question. There was a mention that the high fire requirements would preclude building in most of the county. And if someone could clarify that, I thought that the fire requirements in the ordinance did not apply to all of the county, only to certain areas. Maybe that could be clarified by planning staff. And my hat's off to planning staff. Obviously, a huge amount of work went into this. This is not stuff that they learn about in studying planning. It's all new territory. So thanks very much to staff for all the work they've done. Thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no more hands via Zoom, and I do not have any more public speaker cards in chambers.
Okay, thank you. Public comment is closed. So we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and potential action. Just off the top of my head, I just want to state that I am concerned about the possibility of a de facto ban, and I would very much like to see a mapping of the parcels that would still be potentially usable for these purposes. But sorry, I don't mean to usurp everybody else here, but please, anybody feel free to jump in.
I would concur with the mapping issue. It'd be nice to have a feel for what the current rules would accomplish And I think we all fear what that would be. And I have another question just about the process. Staff has been working on this since March, and the board has had meetings about it, or is it, I don't understand how these words have come about.
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. That's correct. March 10th, the Board of Supervisors adopted an urgency ordinance for 45-day moratorium on BES applications, existing applications, and any new applications, and also directed staff to start working on the ordinance. And so a big portion of our time has been dedicated for the preparation of this ordinance.
Okay, and so in the county being flush didn't hire a consultant that was an expert in this subject, I would assume. So staff was pulling this out of the internet or something?
We did quite a bit of research, yes, internet review, different ordinances, a lot of ordinances in place, not ordinances, but guidelines. We have like San Diego County, who has been working on their ordinances like 2024, and in communication with them, they're not going to go to public hearings until later this year or even 2027. This was about 2 weeks ago that my last communication with them. And so they actually hired, I forget who was the speaker, their board set aside some money to hire an expert consultant to provide best practices to the fire department. A big portion of their ordinance is in collaboration with their fire department, which is very critical, which I'm very happy that we have Charlie here, and present those from time to time to the board.
Okay, so then this is the first time the public has seen the draft? So these are the first public comments we've heard from the community?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you don't mind, I had a couple of questions. How are all these ordinances different from, I mean, you reference NFPA and a lot of other things in the state. How is this different from what already exists?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Ringheden. Technically, all of the different definitions that we have, NFPA, IEEE, UL, all of that is information that is essentially existing, and as many of the commenters were indicating, the technology is just evolving as time comes, but that's information that we're using that we see as best practices or as code from other jurisdictions, and in listening to some of these experts like Mr. Mike Nichols, who I spoke with, and then listening to experts, Mr. Rezende, who spoke in regards to the OTA Mesa fire. He actually gave a presentation at the Monterey Institute, and it's online as well. And so in listening to all of that is where we're gathering this information and putting it into this draft ordinance.
I thank you. I think one of the biggest concerns the public has is thermal runaway, which is the cause of the last situation. By isolating them and putting them in smaller cabinets and spacing them in between, that doesn't really address the thermal runaway. It just, in a sense, it does help. I think it's a good idea to, rather than have a big box of batteries, potential explosive device, to have that separate. But I still am concerned, I don't see anything specifically talking about how they addressed what they did at Moss Landing to control thermal runaway that would stop it from happening now. And maybe if there's an expert we can talk to about that. This is new technology, and so this is all, moving very quickly. But I'd also say that this county needs high-tech jobs. We talk about bringing, lessening the traffic on 25 and bringing some high-tech jobs to this county. This is an opportunity. And I think that we have to be careful not to create a de facto ban on it. But I also think we need to be better informed. And I know that there are a lot of experts out there that might be able to give us some of these answers that we have, but I think information is the most important. So all these rules that we're adding, how is that different from what is already in place by the state?
Thank you for that, Commissioner Winhidden. I do also want to indicate that Mr. Mike Nichols did raise his hand. In case, I know your public comment period is over. It's up to you, Mr. Chair, and members of the
We can
commission.
reopen comment after you address
This question? Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you for that. And so, very good question, Commissioner Winhidden. We try to address all of the codes, NFPA, and everything that I mentioned. And then one of the things that the Board of Supervisors direct the staff to do is try to incorporate it into the county of San Benito and see how it can be as best as possible suited to this county. Some of the concerns that were raised in regards to the fires, the exposures, and the concerns on safety prompt the staff to do the research and include these fire hazard severity zone areas, and where it essentially bans, even if it's within an area where a conditional use permit can be obtained, but if it's within these high or very high hazard zones, it would not be permitted. So those are the things that are in the draft ordinance that, from what I'm hearing, are of concern. And we can certainly work with our amazing GIS technician from the county. And without putting words in his mouth, I'm sure he's going to be able to get that fire hazard zone, FMMP map, agricultural land zones, FEMA, and just kind of mesh them together to try to see, these maps that you are referring to in regards to what is left. And so we can definitely coordinate with him and see what he can provide us.
Okay. I know that Commissioner Sanchez has some questions, but before we move on to her, if I could just ask for clarification. The person with the hand raised on Zoom, have we already heard from him?
Yes, he was the support from the fire department, and he said he had information about the Moss Landing fire. So if you wanted to ask him any specific questions, it looks like he could be available to respond them.
Right, but I mean, we already did the 3 minutes he had, so it really wouldn't be fair to reopen public comment just for him without doing the same for everybody else, so sorry, but yeah. So Commissioner Sanchez, I think you had some questions.
My remarks are that I applaud the staff and looking at the needs of San Benito County, even with the state law in place that was January 2026. And I am looking towards safety as the priority. So I would be disappointed if the things that are in here that I believe your research has shown would be to make for the safety of our residents if it were weakened. So setbacks, distance from the census pocket or the city limits, those stay as strong as they are. And I'm not moved by the state has something more lenient, so let's just be like the state. That'd be just my perspective. And then there's other questions I had just about the security and screening, but if now is not.
No, it's
Go
fine.
ahead.
It's fine, absolutely.
The security system, if it can have a look back of 3 days, 4 days, 72 hours, 96 hours included in your 4B. And the security fencing, the perimeter, it talks about not climbing it. So we also don't want to cut it. And I guess we don't want to impact it. And that would just be my concern. And then one of the public comments, I think, talked about stacking, and it started making me think, how high is this facility going to be when it's built? And I'm thinking it's like a little solar panel, but I could be thinking of yesterday. Do you have an idea how tall they get? That's questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Through the chair, in looking at these battery energy storage systems, they are not that tall, but now in regarding stacking, we will have to look into it a little bit more to see what, if anything, in regards to stacking is allowed. And then our zoning districts do have a height limit, but if stacking is allowed, then we can talk to fire department and Mr. Philip Carrasco, one of the experts, or Mr. Mike Nichols to see what are the height parameters in regards to safety, and come back to you if you like.
So is my question prompting you to say you need to table this so you can come back and answer my questions? That's not my intent.
Not necessarily. If it is the will of the commission to table, we can come back with that. If it is a will of the commission to forward it to the board, with staff looking into height, we can do that. The deadline for the next board meeting, we're running very short on. I think officially, internally, it has passed, but because of this importance of moving it forward, if it's allowed to if it is determined to be moved forward, sure, we can work with our amazing county clerk's office, but it's the will of the planning commission. If you like to table it, or if you like us to move forward with us looking at that and presenting it at the board, we'll be happy to do either or.
I don't want to give anybody the mistaken impression that I'm trying to weaken the provisions that are in this. In fact, I would prefer that the provisions that are in here remain, but conversely, I'm also worried that if we do implement a de facto ban, then that just invites applicants to go to the state, and that takes away local control. So we need to have strong regulations, but they can't be so strong that it means that no one can build anywhere in the county, and that's why I'm asking for the GIS, confabulation of maps to illustrate where these parcels might still remain. That's just my thought.
I would agree with that. I'd also like to see the map with and without the half-mile setback, because it seems ridiculous to me that there's a half-mile setback from all those.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, I heard the thing about the 330 feet when you're fighting a fire, and that's considered sufficient without, additional PPE for the firefighters. I'm wondering if maybe we could compromise and look at something closer to, instead of 2,460 feet, maybe cut that at least in half, maybe say 1,000 feet or 750 feet or something like that.
Perhaps the map could show different models.
Exactly, thank you, yes.
Show the half-mile, show 1,000, show 500, show 330,
Yep.
and see what the parcels look like, given all the rules.
And Commissioner Scagliotti is champing at the bit, it seems.
No, just
you're not.
agreeing with you
Okay.
guys.
Oh,
No,
okay,
I'm
sorry.
agreeing. No,
Sorry.
just agreeing. I think it should go on the parcel size also, as to how far the setback should be.
I was
And how many
wondering,
battery container they put, that type of stuff. My thought.
I'm sorry, I was wondering if we could have some more information on AB 205. And somebody had said that was it San Bernardino County, Mesa? And what I'd like to know really is that if these folks used that provision, how long did it take? Was that a quick go around? Like, is it like builder's remedy? Is the staff maybe can enlighten us a little bit about from the time, if you know, that whoever the person was who applied, and I believe it was San Bernardino County the person mentioned, how long did it take for that go-around to fully occur?
Thank you, Commissioner Hayden. We don't have that particular information. I believe the person who mentioned it, I could be wrong, I believe indicated that within a year. Was that you, Sophia, from 3CE? I'm not sure if I heard wrong, but I think it was within a year's process, if it was AB 205, AB 305? 270.
And we're looking at, basically, I think you said, and maybe I'm mistaken, the board was considering having another extension for a year on this moratorium?
So because the extension that was adopted in April 28th, it was a 45-day extension, and that was gonna end on like June 11th or so. So the meeting before that extension was June 9th. So we wanted to come before the board just to let them know, like, either A, you can allow us, if you could direct us to continue working on this with the moratorium expired, or B, you can extend the moratorium, and per government code, it would be 10 and a half months, and it requires a 4/5 vote of the board. But it doesn't necessarily mean, so they approved it in June 9th, 10 and a half months, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a moratorium for all that time. If and when the planning commission decides to forward it to the board, and if the board adopts prior to that 10 and a half month, we actually have a draft stipulation on the ordinance that's before you that indicates that the moratorium would rescind once the ordinance takes effect. So usually if the board adopts, it usually takes 30 days for it to take effect, and then at that time the moratorium is removed. So otherwise, I mean, it can continue for 10 and a half months from the June 9th, from when they adopted last Tuesday, that extension.
Right, so that, if somebody were, in other words, they could go that route and it would be faster than, I mean, we'd still have a moratorium in place, potentially. So I mean, I think it's important that we kind of address this. You know, honestly, I wish we had more information. But I'd also like to see that some of the language in here mention how it benefits the county of San Benito. I don't remember what person said that the storage facility, all that energy is not going to stay in this county. It's going to be exported somewhere else. So I'd like to see something in here that would, you know, benefit the county more than it, and if we're going to take all this stored energy and ship it out somewhere else, that we have some benefit out of that.
I believe that was Ms. Stacy McGrady who commented on how the resources were going to be how the benefits were going to be to San Benito County, including fiscal, economic development, energy benefits, and so forth.
And that's language we could have in here that say that we might do this, but we have to have some benefits to this. We're not just, I feel like we'd be taken advantage of if we're going to be storing a whole bunch of power for somebody else with the potential of danger and not get any benefit out of it. Just my thought.
Good point. Good point. Thank you. Through the chair, just wanted to bring this to your attention. We also have Fire Marshal Charlie Bedoya with his hands raised. He's more of an extension of staff, but it's up to you if and when.
That's fine. I wouldn't consider him public comment per se. So yes, we can hear from him again. Thank you.
Hey, this is Charlie. Just wanted to touch on the stacking. Just think of it as how to make it simple, like Legos, where you stick a bunch of Legos together, and they're not going to be any taller than the steel containers that are out there. And I believe they did have a limit on what you could do them. So they just stack a bunch of them on there, and that becomes like one component. So they're different layers on them. And I don't remember if it's like 6 or 8 or 10 different layers stacked one on top of each other. I did have a third-party expert who works all over the world evaluated in some training that I had on this. It just so happened, and I asked him, and he says, yes, I will evaluate it for free for you since you were in my class. So he said it was a good ordinance. There's some minor tweaks that need to be taken care of, but we did forward those to to Abraham, to address those also. And if there's anything else, let me know on that part right there. And, you know, they were talking about the, we need to have like 30, 40, 80 pages. We don't, because a lot of it's already addressed in the codes and the laws already. So we don't need to be rewriting it and just restating something that's already passed in an ordinance and laws and codes that are already set. So that's why this isn't a really big ordinance, because a lot of it's already addressed in the codes, adopted codes already.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just, are we done at that end, or are we working our way back? Or?
I noticed, thank you. I noticed one of the comments that came in mentioned we ban internal or nothing in a building, and they noted that, well, the module is an unoccupied building. And we don't mean that. We're thinking like, don't put it in a Costco warehouse. So you would clarify that, Abraham.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. I'm trying to look for the actual compliance on this, but one of the regulations indicates that the best modules are not to be confined within a building. They are to be outdoors.
It's on page 16 of the resolution, so it's best modules will not be permitted indoors is the word used.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
So the module is not considered something that's indoors, because the storage, I'm thinking, is inside the module.
Correct. The module itself, there can be, for example, I believe the way that it's set up, there's like this foundation, and the module itself would be on top.
I was just recalling that written comment, and
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Commissioner Sanchez, and thank you, Rebecca, for providing me. So it's up on the screen now, subsection Roman numeral 19? Yeah. Very bottom.
CMAP, would you like to put the screen up, please?
oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Oh, it's clear to me, but a module will not be permitted indoors. So there was a concern that it wasn't clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments from Commissioner Sanchez? Not at this time. Commissioner Ringhayden, additional comments, questions, concerns, ideas?
Just a comment that, I think that this is such new technology. We really need to get as much information as we can. And I'd like to think also, if it's being built, it's being built with the highest standard of labor, local union labor. I know we can't make them do that, but I think that's part of the most important thing of doing these things safely. And I know we've learned a lot with the nickel cobalt battery being an ancient thing now, but I think still having a good maintenance program with qualified state certified electricians is really important for a project like this if it moves forward.
Commissioner Gibson, additional?
Yeah, I want to thank staff for putting this together. Obviously, this is not my field, so I feel a little nervous. There's a lot of good comments from all of the people that submitted public comments and the public comments this evening, the written comments. I do have a lot of concerns. In particular, I certainly don't want to hand over our local control to the state, because they certainly don't have our welfare at heart. So we have Long Road that has 15 concerns. Some of those I would share, some of those I may not. Then we have the CCA Workforce and EJ Alliance, a lot of words. Some good points that are made regarding capturing real enforceable local benefit. That is a great concern. We're either going to have the environmental possible issues or the aesthetic issues, and then the power is probably going somewhere else. So what is the benefit to our community? Can we mandate that there be a DA, since we can't right now pass a tax for generation and storage that would benefit the community? What do we get out of it, is my question, other than nothing, really. The sales tax, I guess, from the construction, which is a one-time deal. I was surprised there was nothing in there disallowing certain battery chemistry. I mean, the biggest issue with Vistra, that was a fun 2 or 3 days hiding in the house, choking, and I felt horrible for the animals, but I wasn't gonna put sheep and horses and chickens in my house. But I think we need to disallow the certain battery chemistry that is causing the issues. Weed abatement, I think it should be a non-flammable surface. We've dealt with the solar farms. I think we also need to change that ordinance, but we shouldn't have a need for weed abatement. It should be some sort of non-flammable surface. And if that costs a little money up front, so be it. Can we require development agreements, County Council?
Yes, but that's something that they're going to need to enter into as part of their projects.
Okay, but that's a requirement that we can put through this process, through the ordinance?
Yes.
Is it in there? Did I miss it?
I'm looking.
Okay, I may have missed it. Is it there?
There is language on the impact mitigation measures, and that would be under subsections 2508032F, subsection C. The last sentence, the amount and form of such compensation shall be commensurate with the anticipated demands that are placed on fire department resources and may be established through a development agreement, fire service agreement, reimbursement agreement, condition of approval, or other mechanism. So I can maybe.
So that wasn't in reference to the fire department, that was the county in general?
That was in regards to section F that talks about the impact mitigation measures, which most are with the fire department, like training, fire equipment.
I'm talking about the general fund.
And that's
what my major concern is. And then this is basically just a CUP, right? It's a standard CUP, yet they have to come up with all these studies that come to the Planning Commission and we weigh everything. Because there was language in one of these about a community benefit agreement that Orange County put into their ordinance. There's a lot of stuff, and I don't even know if we should make any recommendations to staff at this time because it's overwhelming. I think at this time we'd just continue it for a month and then take our time to dive into all of this, because I would like to read the city of Escondido, the county of Orange. There's a lot of stuff, and I don't see trying to make changes this evening to something that is a massive concept that I certainly don't feel competent at this time to even attempt to change. So those are my thoughts right now.
And Commissioner Scagliotti?
I want to thank staff also, been hard work. This ordinance has a long ways to go. We have a lot of changes we need to make to it to get it to where it benefits the county of San Benito. Right now, I would think we ought to table it till next month. Let staff tweak it a little bit and make it so it's not so cumbersome on the applicant, but make sure that we have our backs covered, just like Mr. Ringhaven said. So that's my thought. Thank you.
I would support continuation of the item. The only thing I would point out is it wouldn't be until next month because the chambers are closed. So there is no scheduled regular meeting in July. We could do a special before or after the chambers closed, but before really wouldn't be feasible, and after might be awfully close to the August meeting.
Well, why don't we just take it to the August meeting, Commissioner?
Well, we can certainly do that. It's just that, I'm just pointing out that that's.
Yeah, I forgot again
that's what
about
would
July.
happen.
So I would, continue it until August, and that should give us plenty of time to do our own thinking and research without putting more labor upon staff who's already overworked and struggling, I think, to maintain what we already have.
I had maybe a question council possibly regarding what you had said is, at the time of a conditional use permit that they have to go through, at that time, can we require a labor agreement that they use maybe a labor force from this area, percentage?
Yes, you can impose conditions at that time on labor and similar
So during that time, we
restrictions
can
as a condition.
add some additional language.
Yes.
I kind of tend to feel the same way as the other commissioners. It seems like that I'd like to have more information. This is a really big deal, in a way. You have the potential to bring technology, which everybody wants this high tech to come here, so you don't have to do the travel back and forth and have good paying jobs in this county. But I also think that we need to look at some of these conditions and modify them so that they benefit the county maybe a little bit more. And I think that we would need more time, is my thought.
Yeah. So is there a consensus that, and if so, are we prepared to, I would be prepared to entertain a motion.
I just want to make sure that the consensus is that for the August meeting, we will see variations of that map showing the parcels that are affected and what's available with or without the half mile, and then whatever variations of that setback, if it exists after the August meeting, which it may or may not. So I would like to see that. And other than that, I don't think I would want to suggest any changes at this time.
I would agree, except that I would suggest adding the chemistry prohibition.
Right.
The chemistry prohibition that you mentioned.
Yep, I like that.
Sure.
And I think that was the only note that I had. Yeah.
So provide us the map with the variations and then ban the particular chemical mix. And then we'll see it at the regular meeting in August.
So is
That'll be in the form of a motion.
Okay, is that, okay, so that, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, can we do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Catherine Sanchez?
No.
Vincent Ringhayden?
I apologize. Can you clarify again? We're voting to extend the time, correct?
We're voting to continue this item until August to give us all more time to prepare and to take a look at what changes, because I don't feel like I should make any suggestions other than maybe the battery composition ban on that particular type of chemical. I think we all need a little more time to understand what we're doing.
So to your motion, then I say yes.
Okay. Commissioner Way?
Yes.
Robert Gibson?
Yes.
And Robert Scagliotti?
Yes.
That is a 4-1 in favor of continuing to August.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item, which I believe is adjournment. Let's see. No, it's not quite. I should state for the record, there's nothing under item 8, which is regular agenda. Future agenda items.
We have Commissioner now.
That's coming right after future agenda items, although I don't care what order we do them in.
I just have my comments as a commissioner. And you know what it's going to be. It's important that we get this information on Wednesdays because we need time. We are essentially volunteers, and weekends we have lives. And this is a perfect example. It's a really complicated situation, and there wasn't enough time to properly prepare. And so now we're pushing it 2 months out. Maybe it'd be beneficial to give us a couple more days to look at this kind of thing. So, and maybe in the future, if we're not getting it, if we continue to not get it in a timely fashion, perhaps we can get a detailed description of why, so that we can understand what needs to be changed. Because if we're going to be doing this every month for the next 4 years, at some point I might lose my patience publicly.
Yeah, I was wondering if this is an appropriate time to ask Abraham regarding the cell tower map. that we had requested some information on. Does he have any information? Is it appropriate time to ask that?
Sure, why not?
I wanted to know if you had found anything out and can give us any information in regards to cell tower maps and the co-locations that are in those areas.
Thanks, Commissioner Ringhaden. We are actively working on that. We found, with the help of our GIS expert, Renee, we found a state map that lists currently like registered cell towers in the area, and I found resolutions going back to 2012 for cell towers that have been approved. So I'm actively trying to review those with the map to see what's, if anything's missing or what's existing. And Renee's going to make that a layer on our GIS. So as soon as I'm done with all the research and we get the information, we will provide it to you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Other either future agenda items or commissioner announcements from anybody? Commissioner Sanchez, anything from you?
No.
No? You guys? Okay. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We are adjourned at 8:01. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank
Yeah.
you.